What's up, guys? It's Ben with 2020 election predictions, and today I'm going to be doing a video focusing on the black vote. Um, Black voters are a very important portion of the American electorate. They've had a lot of influence in the past, and their vote, while they tend to be pretty consolidated and the media puts a lot of attention on them and kind of tries to pigeonhole them, they're a lot more diverse in terms of their opinions and just their viewpoints. And I think that a lot of people think there are a lot of misconceptions about kind of the black vote altogether. And I think a lot of the times that they try to get lumped into one viewpoint. And I am not a black person, obviously, so I don't want to speak to the experiences of a black person or try to say, like, especially with all these George Floyd protests and Black Lives Matter movement. I just want to preface this and say that I don't want to speak to the experiences of black people because I'm not a black person. I just want to try to listen. But this is an election predictions channel, so I do want to talk about the kind of the importance of the black vote and kind of what role I think it's going to play in the 2020 elections. So if we look at this graph right here, at first, this is the percentage of the black vote going to the Republican president and the Democratic president since 1936. So typically, I think it was kind of in 1932, 1936 is kind of when the vast majority of black people kind of shifted from the Republican Party, which was the party of Abraham Lincoln, who freed the slaves, kind of more to the Democratic Party. And this was mainly during Franklin Delano Roosevelt, kind of in the Great Depression, when he was doing a lot of his New Deal programs and kind of reaching out to these groups. So, but let's just look at in the past, like let's say 30 so years. So in 1992, George Bush, this is George H.W. Bush, won 11% of the vote. Bob Dole, 12%. George Bush, 8%. George Bush, 11% in his 2004 run, which is largely due to Karl Rove, and he convinced a lot of socially conservative, evangelical black voters to vote for George W. Bush. And this was key for his elections in states like Ohio, is kind of what the research says. And then in 2008 and 2012, the Republican nominees John McCain and Mitt Romney did very, very poorly with the black vote. And that is largely due probably because Barack Obama was their challengers, and he was a very inspirational figure for black voters. He was obviously the first black president. I think this inspired a lot of black voters to the polls. But if you see here that Barack Obama did a lot better in 2008 than he did in 2012, but still, I mean, John McCain only won 4% of the black vote, and Mitt Romney only won 6% of the black vote. So going to 2016 for the Trump-Hillary Clinton matchup, Trump won 8% of the black vote, which was an improvement from the Republican showing in 2012 and 2008. And I do think this was largely due to because Barack Obama was not on the ticket again. Hillary Clinton was not. I don't think black voters were not as enthusiastic to vote for Hillary Clinton as they were for Barack Obama. And this is evidenced in this graph right here. You can see a black voter turnout declined sharply in 2016. So you see it was around 65, and it was even higher than white turnout in 2012. But out of all the groups, it had the sharpest decline. It went under 60%. And typically, black voters, especially in 2008 and 2012, vote at very high rates, especially black women especially. So we do see that Trump made modest improvements from John McCain and Mitt Romney. And the Trump campaign has advertised this as saying that, look, Trump was kind of this revolutionary figure. And even though that the media tries to call him racist and the Democrats call him racist, Trump is actually making slow improvements in getting black people to come back to the Republican Party. And he has launched the Black Voices for Trump, which is kind of his effort to reach out to the black vote. And also, Candace Owens has received a lot of notoriety for her Brexit movement. Kanye West shouted her out in one of her tweets, and Candace Owens is kind of a rock star now in black conservative circles and has over 2 million followers on Twitter and gets a lot of attention from the mainstream media. So let's just look at the impact that the black vote is going to have in the 2020 election. If we look at the 2020 Democratic primaries, Joe Biden was not looking good at all after Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada. But black voters saved him in South Carolina. They really rallied around him more than they rallied around Hillary Clinton in 2016. So Hillary Clinton in 2016, she was in a close race with Bernie Sanders. But Hillary Clinton squeaked by in the end. But in 2020, even though there was a lot more serious candidates, black voters rallied around Joe Biden in unprecedented numbers. I think similar probably to 2008 and 2012, even though there obviously wasn't a contested primary in 2012. But in 2008, it was pretty similar that a lot of black voters rallied around Barack Obama in the primaries, similar to how they're rallying around Joe Biden in the 2020 Democratic primary. And this was largely due to the endorsement. Cleburne, he's a Democratic congressman from South Carolina. His endorsement was key in the Democratic primary. So obviously, black voters kind of rescued Joe Biden, and now he's the Democratic nominee. But now we are at the general election, and I want to kind of analyze how much of the black vote that I think Donald Trump is going to get. So I want to kind of name 3 facts that I think. I think there's going to be increased voter turnout in 2020 with these George Floyd and Black Lives Matter protests. I think there's a lot of energy in the black community. There was plenty of black voters who stayed home during the 2016 election, and I think that this number will probably be at least 65% in the 2020 election. So my second fact that I want to say is I think that President Trump and Joe Biden are both going to get more black votes in 2020 than President Trump and Hillary Clinton did in 2016. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer that Joe Biden's going to get more votes than Hillary Clinton, because the increased turnout is inevitably going to help Joe Biden. But I also think that President Trump is going to get more black votes in 2020 than he did in 2016. I think there's a more organized movement, whether it is with his campaign as Black Voices for Trump or with the Brexit movement that Candace Owens is starting. I think that there's more organization and there's more energy in black conservative circles. And I think that they really could turn out to vote for Donald Trump in 2020. And my third fact that is going to be a little bit more iffy, I feel very confident my first 2 facts, is that President Trump is going to improve his percentage in the black vote. So in 2016, he had 8% of the black vote. I expect that Donald Trump will get around 10%, maybe even over 10%. But I think that Biden will probably benefit from increased black voter turnout. And so I know this can be fairly confusing, but let me kind of explain an example of this. So I think that Donald Trump is going to get a higher percentage of black votes in 2020, but I think it's going to hurt him overall. So let's say that there is an example and that Donald Trump won 2 out of 10 black votes. So he would win 20% of the black vote, and let's say Biden would win 8% of the black vote. So that means that Biden gets 6 more black votes than Donald Trump. But let's say that in like 2020, Donald Trump were to improve his percentage and get 30% of the black vote out of 100 voters. So that means that Joe Biden would get 70. Then that means that Joe Biden would win the black vote by 40 votes instead of 6 votes. So that would actually help Joe Biden, even though Donald Trump is improving his percentage. So that is why I'm saying that an increased voter turnout, while Donald Trump might improve his percentage, it's still going to help Joe Biden overall. And Donald Trump getting a higher percentage in the vote will definitely help him overall in the election. It'll chip into that, but still having the black voter turnout higher, it will help Joe Biden, even though maybe it won't help him as much as it helped Barack Obama did in 2008 or 2012. So just looking at the black voices for Trump, the Trump campaign is flush with cash, and they're putting a lot of money into the this coalition of voters. So this is their advisory board. You see a lot of familiar faces, maybe Herman Cain, Diamond and Silk, Daryl Scott. He's a pastor. So you have kind of a wide range of different people. So Herman Cain was a 2012 presidential candidate. I mean, Stacey Dash. You remember she was famous. Um, you have you have religious figures like a pastor. Diamond and Silk are kind of entertainers, not necessarily super serious. Political people. You have Dr. Alveda King, who is Martin Luther King's niece. So you do have a wide range of black voices. Terrence K. Williams, he is a comedian that I think could help Donald Trump with black voters. And same with Candace Owens. I mean, Kanye West tweeted that he likes the way that Candace Owens thinks. And Kanye West visited the White House and met Donald Trump in his famous MAGA hat. And Kim Kardashian has also visited the White House and helped Donald Trump with criminal justice reform. And criminal justice reform and increased funding for historically black colleges and universities, and also just having the historically low black unemployment rate before the coronavirus hit were things that Donald Trump would say on the campaign trail that I really don't think that George Bush, John McCain, or Mitt Romney really emphasized in their campaigns for president. So I think Trump is making an effort. Will it work? I don't know. I do think he has said some racially insensitive things that have definitely hurt him with black voters. But still, I mean, I like if we look at this poll that came out of the Wall Street Journal NBC poll, it says that this was before the George Floyd protest, so this might have changed. This was in March of 2020. It said that Trump enjoys a 14% approval with black Americans, which is a lot better than his obviously how much of the black vote he got in 2016. But the gender gap is really stark, a stark gender gap. He got roughly 24% of black men approved of Trump, while 6% of black women approved of Trump when they were asked the same question. So a quarter of black men approved of Donald Trump in March in March of 2020, which I think is a startling number. I mean, I think this would surprise a lot of people if they heard it in the street that a quarter of black men approve of President Trump. I do not think that he will win 24% of the black vote among men in 2020. I think it'll probably be between 15 and 20%. But I think this will put Trump's overall numbers with the black vote between 10 and 12%, maybe even 13%. So, I mean, this is a really influential outcome because the black vote has been a very important segment of the vote. They helped Bill Clinton in 1992 retake the White House, and I think they're going to be definitely going to be a very important coalition in 2020. This was an article that came out of the New York Times. This was right when we were having all the Black Lives Matter protests, and it was an opinion piece in the New York Times that's kind of offering a different perspective, saying that the black vote is going to be they are going to be responsible for taking Trump out of the White House in 2020, which I definitely think is a very possible outcome. And Juan Williams, he's on The Five on Fox News. I don't know if any of you all watch that, but what he was saying, and I think is really interesting, he's basically saying that black voters saved Joe Biden in the South Carolina primary. Jim Clyburn was the South Carolina congressman who kind of endorsed him and got everyone to coalesce around Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee. But one thing I think is pretty interesting is that, contrary to the image created by news coverage of Black Lives Matter protests, 43% of Black voters are moderates. A quarter identify as conservative. These are the Black people in church on Sundays. They are proud members of a sorority or fraternity. So I think this is a misconception that the media tries to presume, is that all Black people are Democrats and they're all very liberal. Typically, Black voters tend to be more moderate than the average Democratic voter, and even more conservative, maybe on more social issues. There's a lot of Black voters who are pro-life, and who want to see restrictions on immigration to the United States. And I think a lot of Black voters would be open to Trump's message, especially the quarter that I identify as conservatives. And if we look at the polls, it's going to tend to be more Black men. But Trump is investing a lot of money, a lot of resources, a lot of time to try to get the Black vote. And some people say that, oh, this is all kind of like a fake, like that Trump is only doing this to kind of cement his support with white voters who might be kind of wary about that Trump might be perceived as a racist, and that by going after more Black voters, that white voters will be more comfortable voting for him. And then there's also some people say that, like, wow, like this looks like a bunch of people, but these people are all getting paid by the Trump campaign, which I do think that some of these people are getting paid by the Trump campaign. But I also do think, and this poll shows us, that there is some grassroots support within the Black community for Donald Trump. So whether we see this on election day or not, the Black vote is going to be very, very important. They are going to be very crucial in either sending Donald Trump out of the White House and putting Joe Biden into the White House, or allowing Donald Trump to serve for 4 more years. And so I will just repeat my kind of facts again. I do think there's going to be increased Black voter turnout in 2020 because it was down just significantly in 2016. I do think that President Trump and Biden are going to get more raw votes in terms of the 2020 election compared to 2016. And this one's going to be more controversial, but I think President Trump is going to get a higher percentage of the Black vote. He got a 14% approval rating in March. I bet this is probably going to be down to maybe like 11 or 12. And I think he's going to get at least 10% of the Black vote. But I still think overall it's going to help Joe Biden. So please let me know what you think about my video. The Black vote's going to be very important in states like Georgia and Michigan that are kind of the swing states in 2020. So, and please subscribe here if you haven't, and be on the lookout for my next video. Thanks.